Thank you, everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulties. My name is David Takearts, and I will be your MC for the morning. I am the manager of strategic stakeholder outreach at CalPERS. And on behalf of CalPERS staff and CalSTRS, our hosts, I'd like to welcome you to this quarter's meeting of the School Employer Advisory Committee. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to come and hear updates and new and timely information about the CalPERS business programs. I'm sure that'll be a good use of your time. The information updates this morning will be provided by CalPERS staff, and we have staff from some of our other program areas here available to chime in. Sprinkled throughout the audience, we have various levels of staff here, so please take advantage of that opportunity to talk to them on breaks, and they'll also be circulating around to address individual questions that really require a specific response. You should have all received a folder containing our agenda for this morning. If you have not checked in back there, my staff, Merle Fullylove, and on this side we have Josh Robinson will be able to take care of you. We are joined as always by a number of folks watching via webcast, and so in light of that, if you have a question, please do wait just a moment for one of the mic runners to come. Just indicate with your hand that you have a question, and they'll come in and provide the mic. Otherwise, the people on the webcast will just get a view of me going, but they won't hear anything, so it will not be super informative. Those of you on the phones, or rather watching via webcast, if you would like to get a question in, I'd like you to email me personally. I brought my iPhone here. Go ahead and email me. My name is David Takearts, so the spelling of that odd sounding name is on the agenda that you're looking at. So the email is David and then underscore last name Takearts is T as in Tom, EYKAERTS at calpers.ca.gov. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive right into the agenda now that everyone's settled in. We'll start off hearing about GASB 68, then we'll go into legislative updates, and then an update about CalPERS, and then finally we'll have a mention about various health benefits guide changes, and then we'll head into our break. So we've got a packed morning here, so let's go ahead and dive in. First up, we have CalPERS controller, Kristen Montgomery from our financial office. So Kristen, go ahead and come on up.
Good morning. I hope everybody can hear me okay. It's always fun to talk about accounting in the morning. Yeah, especially GASB 68. I'm sure it might be on your mind because I'm sure you're gearing up for your financials that are coming up in June. So I just want to touch on some updates. We talked about this a little bit last month. We are preparing the reports. The GASB accounting valuation report will be provided to you in June. This report is at the aggregate level, and I think that's similar to what CalSTRS is doing. So you'll get the report that has a net pension liability, pension expense, information that you need to put in your financials, but that's at an aggregate. So then you got to ask yourself, well, if it's at aggregate, how do I put it into my financials? We are also preparing what's called the schedule of employer allocations. And what that is we based it on the contributions. So that gives you your allocation. And so you take your allocation, the percentage, and apply it to the aggregate. So you just do the math on it. So you might ask yourself, well, how did you calculate that? Well, we calculate based on the contributions as of the last fiscal year end. But we waited until March 6th to pull that information. So when we pulled that information, we wanted to make sure that all the adjustments, all those suspended files, all that type of thing was actually into our MyCalPERS system before we pulled the information. So it is as of the fiscal year end, but we waited for the adjustments. We also looked at any suspended files. So if there was suspended file information, we looked at that to say, okay, we need to also include that in the allocations. Again, we didn't do the math for you because you need to determine how you're going to do the allocations of the aggregate. But we will have that out there for you. The other thing that we have been working on is the reports are being audited. So we also will be providing you the audit report. All of this information is going to be on the CalPERS online, and we will send out a circular to sit there and say, it's done, it's completed, go to CalPERS online, pull the information. Lastly, I wanted to let you know we have a webinar. It's next week, May 21st. I hope you all have signed up. If you haven't signed up, please sign up. Okay, sorry. Somebody asked me to slow down. I'm sorry, I do talk fast. So the other thing we have is a webinar. It's on May 21st. And you can go to our CalPERS website and sign up for the webinar. So let me tell you a little bit about the webinar, what is going to be at the webinar. We will be doing a presentation to give you kind of overview. So what is GASB 68? How does it impact you? What's a net pension liability? Then what we're going to do is we're going to go into detail about the report. So we will have a sample report. In fact, the sample report is out on our website right now. So if you go to the GASB 68 section of our website, there's a sample report. So what we're going to do in that webinar is we're going to actually walk through the report, talking about things like the discount rate, why we chose that discount rate, where to get information on a crossover test. We walk through the actual calculations to say, here is the net pension liability. Here's the numbers that populate that net pension liability. We also talk about the pension expense. So we walk through that. And then lastly, we walk through this employer allocation report that I talked about. So all of that will be on the webinar. It's a great resource for all of you. We will also be there to answer any questions. So you can actually go online and ask questions. So we will be manning a bunch of computers and sitting there saying, okay, you have a question? It'll be like a live chat type of thing, and we'll answer your questions right online. So those are my updates, and so I'll wait for some questions, and we have some questions in the front row.
Good girl, I even waited.
This on? I don't know.
This hang on?
Yep, it's on.
Okay, I'm going to start singing. Actually, on the GASB 68 webinar happens to fall on in the middle of countywide financial managers meeting. You know, we meet with all of our districts in our county once a month, and it happens to fall right during that meeting. So, and right smack in the middle of the meeting. So it kind of makes it difficult. So since I sent out a bulletin to all of our districts about this webinar, of course, I got a response back from all the districts saying, oh, that's right in the middle of financial managers. Do you intend to, one, archive the presentation, or two, offer another date?
Okay. Yes, we are archiving it, so you can look at the presentation anytime you want. The only challenge is you won't be able to ask the questions. It's not live. So, but you can look at the webinar. We do have resources out there, so if you do have questions after you look at the webinar, you can send an email to, I think it's GASB60. I don't have it memorized. I'd have to get that out to you as the resource. I can't. Good.
It's CalPERS_GASB68 at calpers.ca.gov.
So we can certainly answer the questions if you have any after the webinar.
Are you going to be doing it again?
We are not.
Okay.
It was just the one day. Question in the front over here.
Veena from Orange County. I just wanted to know that we did receive the invoice for school employers, but we also processed the payroll for some other agencies, non-school. So their net pension liability information is available on their valuation actuarial report when they request one?
So you should never use the funding report for accounting anymore. So that is something separated. So if you have, is it a non-school? Is it a public agency?
Yes.
Okay. So some of you that have a public agency, where you get the information is you go to My CalPERS, and you can log in and request the report separately, and you pay it separately.
Oh, so it will be, let's say their actuarial report is, let's say, $850. And then this will be a separate charge.
It's a separate charge. So when you need the GASB 68 report for your, let's say some of you have school public agencies, you're going to go to My CalPERS, order
I have
it,
the form
and then it's $850 for that one. So that one's
$850 just for that.
For that report, and then it's $350 for the separate. Yes. So then when you look at your financials, you have to look at how you're going to put both of those that data point
But
into
it
your
is
financials.
$350 for them too?
No, so it's separate. So that
Okay.
you're going to get two different invoices.
I understand that.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let me explain. Some of the schools, some of you have plans that really fall into a public agency, and you're not part of the cost-sharing school. So it's really considered a different plan. So for those of you that have a different plan like that, you would have to go into My CalPERS and order that one separately. It's considered part of the public agency cost-sharing plan. You go into My CalPERS, you can order it, and it's $850 per plan. So you'll get charged for that separately, and you'll get the report different. For the other ones, the school report, that's an aggregate. As I said, it's all one report, and we're charging only $350 for that report. So you get a separate invoice for the school one. Does that help? Just a minute, there's questions in the front here, and there's one in the back.
So if we don't have any other public agencies, and when you say other public agencies, what, can you give us an example?
So if you have, do you get a valuation report that includes for is it safety? Is it safety? Thank
Okay,
you.
we
Safety
do
plans.
we do have some
So if you have a
districts in our
safety
county
one,
that have
you
safety.
need to order a different report.
Okay.
And you can
is
go out there right now. So I want to make sure there is, again, on our website, there is order procedures out there. So you can go to our website. It tells you how to order, request the report. So they're detailed procedures at our GASB 68 on the website.
So, because we've addressed with the districts, that we were aware of the $350, and of course we've addressed that issue with the districts. We've explained how we're going to take it from them, and that kind of thing, and build the charter schools. But now we need to let them know about this additional $850
Yes, if you have a
report,
safety
if
plan.
they have a safety unit.
If you have a safety plan.
And then the other question I forgot to ask was, when do you anticipate you'll have that webinar archived?
It'll be archived right afterwards.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
That the evaluation report, which will be sent in June, will it be sent to the county office, or it will be sent to each school district?
So the one for the schools is going to just be on the CalPERS online. So you can just go and get it. It's not going to be sent. You guys will go to the CalPERS online and get it. We will send out a circular so you know exactly where to pull it.
Okay, so
And it'll be more than one report. I just want to make sure everybody understands. We have the audit report, and you actually have the GASB 68 report. So your auditors are going to want to know what did we audit, or what did our external auditors audit. So both of those you want to pull.
and it will be just one report for the county.
It's one report for all school
Or for all
pools.
schools.
So it's aggregate. So I want to make sure everybody understands it's aggregate numbers for the pool. You have to take that report, apply your allocation, and put that information into your financials. Okay? There was a question in the back. Did you get it? Okay.
And when are they providing the allocation?
The allocation will be provided at the same time. It'll be in June, and that is actually audited. So it'll be part of the audit report. Good questions. Other ones? Nothing? Okay. All right, well, good luck with your financials. It's going to be a fun time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kristen. Okay, one note on questions that just came in through the webcast, and these are really questions specific to the webcast. There are very few actual printable handouts for this particular meeting of the Employer Advisory Committee. So, for example, there was you're not missing any handouts for the GASB 68, for legislative update, for the new system requirements, or for the new CalPERS website. There will be a very, very brief PowerPoint slide, but it's nothing that would be needed to be printed out. So you're not missing anything, so just watch and enjoy. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Let's go ahead and get a legislative update from our own Danny Brown.
Good morning, everybody. I have a big crowd today, and of course, we're going to do GASB 68 and legislation first while you're still drinking your coffee. But, I was trying to figure out what I was going to say today, and I'm thinking, how can I be so busy but yet have nothing to say to this group, because there really is no legislation that deals with our school members per se, at least definitely on the pension side. I think on the pension side, there is just really nothing going through. The only kind of few bills that we're working on have to do with contracting agencies, particularly cities who are wanting to form joint power agreements and somehow exempt themselves from the PEPA requirements. So there's a lot of bills dealing with that, trying to figure out these small exemptions to PEPA. So nothing though big in impacting the school members. We have a couple of divestment bills we're working on. Senator De Leon has introduced a bill to require CalPERS and CalSTRS to divest from thermal coal. We have been working with the senator. The bill is narrowly constructed and defined, so there's probably about 24, 25 companies that would be impacted if that bill passed. Our board took a no position on that bill. The other bill out there has to do with companies that the Turkish government owns. So it's typically Turkish bonds and maybe some other Turkish, power companies or something along those natures. And this all has to do around the whole, if you've been following, it's obviously been a big story last month, the 100-year anniversary of the Armenian genocide. And so this is, really a kind of a political bill, political statement, but it does require CalPERS and CalSTRS to divest from any companies that are owned by the Turkish government. The bill is currently on suspense. We have not taken a position on it. I guess I would say that in committee the bill was amended to, instead of being a mandate, it would be permissive. So it's basically wanting CalPERS and CalSTRS to engage with the Turkish government, but then says we may divest, but we don't have to. The bill is in appropriations, and we will probably take that to our board in June. So, a lot of the work that we've been doing is around healthcare. So it will impact you to the extent that you contract with CalPERS for healthcare benefits. Next week, we are taking 2 bills to our board. One has to do with balanced billing. And so this is when an individual goes to a health facility, say they're going to go have elective surgery. They think they're going to see their doctor in network, or maybe they're going to see their surgeons in network, but for whatever reason, the assistant surgeon or the anesthesiologist or somebody is not out in network, and so they get a bill because the health plan only pays a certain amount to that doctor, and since that doctor is out of network, they want to bill the patient for the balance. So typically doesn't happen in HMOs, or it's not supposed to, but it can. It can happen. It does happen in PPOs. So this bill is basically saying that if it's no fault of the patients, they hadn't already they haven't approved it. If they approved to have go to a surgeon outside a network, then they would have to pay the difference. But if it wasn't any fault of their own, they would not be able to be balance billed. Health plan and the provider will need to work it out, but the patient is out of it. And so we are recommending our board support that bill. The other one has to do with my favorite topic, biosimilars. That bill's back, and the pharmaceutical companies are running a bill that we believe has some disincentives to get biosimilars, or at least interchangeable biosimilars, to market. So there's a distinct term that the FDA can determine that a biosimilar is interchangeable, which means it's exactly the same as the reference drug. And so rather than just being able to allow the pharmacist to substitute for that interchangeable, the bill wants to require the pharmacist do this notification requirement and notify the physician that they're making this change, and they're talking about it being for safety reasons. We're not sure if it's really for safety reasons. We think it's more of to try to discourage these interchangeable biosimilars to be distributed. So we are opposing, unless amended, to eliminate the notification requirement. Obviously, I think it's important for all of us in our health plans that we can use biosimilars. They are cheaper, and they should, and again, as long as they're having the same effectiveness and safety and everything else, I think it's important to be able to have these types of prescriptions available. So I think overall, prescription drugs is a big topic at the legislature, just because we know that the cost of these of drugs, and particularly the biologic drugs, while they do great things for their patients, they are increasing the cost for everybody. So there's a lot of bills that are highlighting the cost of these drugs, and then there's bills that are trying to make sure that the consumers aren't bearing the brunt of these costs. But at the same time, there's not enough bills that are really looking at how do we contain the cost, how do we get at bringing down the cost of these drugs. Yes, we don't want our members to be paying, hitting their $6,000 monthly out of pocket in the first month for having to pay for these prescription drugs. But at the same time, if you just push that cost onto the plans, that just means the costs are pushed onto all the employers and the members. And we need to really look at what we can do about bringing the actual cost of these drugs down. We are also bringing to our board next month a federal bill, H.R. 711 by Representative Brady. This has to do with, it's called the Equal Treatment for Public Servants Act of 2015. You may have heard of it. It probably doesn't impact your members that are in CalPERS, maybe your members that are in CalSTRS, because this has to do with repealing the current windfall elimination provision and replacing it with another formula. So it's not getting rid of it, which I think most of us want, is to eliminate the windfall elimination provision. And this is, for those that may not be familiar with it, this is if you're receiving a public pension that is not coordinated with Social Security, and then you also have private sector employment where you've earned Social Security credit. So when you retire, you're going to get a Social Security check, and you're going to get your pension that is not coordinated with Social Security. Well, IRS is going to reduce your Social Security, and it's called the windfall elimination provision. So this bill would repeal that, replace it with what they would call a fairer formula. For everybody that's currently retired, they're likely to see an increase in their Social Security by about a third. For future retirees after January 1st, 2017, it's going to vary. For your lower wage earners, you're probably going to see an increase. For people that are at the high end of the spectrum, you're possibly going to see a decrease. And the other thing that's going to happen too, and one of the reasons why they're pushing this bill forward is because they're able to score it as cost neutral, because in 2017, they're actually going to have 30 years of Social Security data, because right now people are self-reporting that they're on the web. They have to fill out their form and they're basically saying, I'm getting a public pension that's not coordinated with Social Security. So it's a self-reporting system. They assume a lot of people are not reporting, but now they're going to have enough, because everybody's now is in Medicare, they're going to be getting payroll data, and they're going to be able to tell whether or not a person is in a job that's not coordinated with Social Security and should have had this windfall elimination provision. So they're going to assume they're going to capture more people. That the bill doesn't require them to capture these people, but it's an assumption that Social Security will start capturing more people that have not been reporting. And so they're able to use some of that savings to offset the bill. And so again, I think for most people, they're probably going to, who would have normally been hit by the windfall elimination provision, they're going to see more money in their Social Security check, but there will be some people that will get a reduction, see more money coming out. So we are taking it to our board next month, and we are recommending that they support the bill. There's a handful of pension plans across the country that have already supported, Ohio and Massachusetts. A lot of labor organizations have supported the bill. No one has come out in opposition yet.
What's the number? Is that SJR 1?
SHR 711. It's a federal bill. It's a House Republican bill, so it's HR 711.
What's SJR 1?
SJR 1 is a Senate joint resolution. So it's a resolution at the state level that basically is telling the federal government you should repeal the GPO and WEP. So it's kind of a gesture of the state legislature saying, federal government, you should do this. The problem is that while, again, everybody would like the WEP to be repealed and not replaced, it's never going to happen because of the cost. I mean, they've been trying to do this ever since I've been in CalPERS, and it'll probably continue it. They would have continued it well past my retirement. And I think a lot of people feel like this is the best opportunity, because once we get past this 2017 date, this savings that the that the Congress and the Social Security Administration is scoring because they're going to be able to have this data will be lost. I mean, once they start getting that extra money coming in, they're not going to be able to use it in the future to offset any change. So it's kind of like there's a window of opportunity to make this change now. At least that's the way everybody looks at it. So I'm going to stop there and see if anybody has any questions. Sure.
Two questions, Danny. One, so what's the status of SHR 711? Where is it at? Is it?
It is, it's been introduced. It hasn't been taken up
Okay.
in the House, but it is, but I think it has bipartisan support. So it is authored jointly by a Republican and a Democrat. So I think everybody's feels that it will move through. It's just a matter of, once there's a package to go through to take it up.
Great, okay. And then my other question, and I can't remember if it's AB 304 or SB 304, but there was supposed to have been some language, because CalPERS won't allow retirees anything but wages these days because of pension reform, and the new sick leave law, doesn't exclude retirees. So my understanding was that, and I can't remember if it's SB 304 or AB 304, was going to include some kind of provision to clear that up. And then I heard no, that was taken out. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, so it was in there for a day or two, and it was just before the committee hearing, it was taken out. The author took it out. They got opposition, I believe, from SEIU, and so they removed it. So that's where we're at. I know that, I don't know if anybody over there can answer the question. I know Anthony Sweeney was working on a circular letter to go out to the employers as to how we were going to implement that provision.
Oh, great. That's my next question.
And so I don't know if anybody has any info on that.
That's correct. Working on a circular letter.
Okay.
AB 5022. Right.
Right.
Do you have any idea when that circular letter might come out? And the only reason, I don't mean to be pushy, it's just that we're trying to advise our districts, and it's already, we're already here, and so.
Hi, I'm Rosanna Castaigne with Benefits. Yes, we're getting a lot of questions from a lot of employers, and the circular letter is actually going through the final approval process at this time.
Great.
So we want to get it out. We know you need it as soon as possible, so we're working on it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Danny.
Sure.
Other questions for Danny?
Veena from Orange County. I got good at saying my name now. Similar question on the sick leave. I just wanted to know about the substitutes as well, retirees as well as when people are hired as sub. So they will be covered under new sick leave law. So when those people become member and all, if that sick leave can be transferred to PERS, which they earn.
I don't know the answer to that question. I don't
Because
know.
districts keep asking, and to
So
my knowledge, it will be.
This person is a part-time employee that is not a CalPERS member yet, but they're earning sick leave.
But they will
So when they become a member, does that sick leave roll over?
Yeah, my understanding is there's limitations in AB 1522 about what can be done with the sick leave there. So it'll be up to the employers to look at that legislation to see how to apply it.
Yeah,
Does
but-
that answer your question?
Well, I don't think she's
Not
talking about
completely.
a retired annuitant. She's talking about someone that's coming in as a part-time employee that's not quite a CalPERS member yet, but is earning sick leave. And so when they become a CalPERS member, does that sick leave carry over, continue?
I don't think we'll make, I'm sorry, it's Christina Rollins for membership. I don't think we make that decision. That'll be on the employer if the sick leave transfers over. But it won't have anything to do with their qualifications for membership.
Got another question related to upcoming legislation here.
Okay. Well,
So my question would be back to you. we're not talking about qualifications for their membership, but would they be able to use that sick leave towards for a benefit when they retire? So when people retire, they're given those days. Would they be able to use that? No. So it can't be used at retirement. Okay, thank you.
So for those of you on the webcast, the answer to that question was no. And let's try to keep these questions specific to legislation right now. We will have a forum later on in this session where we can get kind of into the minutia of interpreting the rules and regulations. But Danny is our ledge guy.
I don't want to get in trouble because usually if someone asks me a question, I try to answer it even if I don't know the answer.
Danny, you're a sitting duck up there.
All right. Anybody? Any other questions? Okay.
All right, seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you very much, Danny. Appreciate it. Okay, the next agenda item falls to me, and I would like to give another kind of like a more broad update on CalPERS business. I realize that the main scope of this meeting is to talk about the exact details of administering the various regulations, laws, related to school districts, but I firmly believe that everybody in this room is not only an employee of the system, but also a member of the system, and you're interested in the big picture of how the fund is doing, what is the direction of CalPERS, and so I'd like to take a few moments and trace out some of the main topics that we're dealing with right now. Okay, so first off, let's talk about one of the primary potential threats to the system, which is the idea of bankruptcies at an agency, district, city level. The question being, can a bankruptcy, as a result of whatever cause, financial mismanagement, simple cost overruns, can a bankruptcy threaten the pension promises made to public employees of that agency? So right now, the agencies under the gun are really Stockton, the city of Stockton, the city of San Bernardino. So the city of San Bernardino a couple of years ago essentially declared bankruptcy, cost overruns, just unable to make its various credit payment back. So in case you didn't know, cities take a lot of loans out in order to finance public projects. So these investments come from Wall Street, they come from private investment firms, they come from bondholders, and the city of San Bernardino is essentially struggling to make its payments. The question then arose, well, what about its payments to CalPERS, the payments that are made to continue to fund the pension promises that are made to their public employees, their firefighters, their miscellaneous workers, their police officers, and everybody else who works for the city. So with city of San Bernardino, they actually stopped making their payments for several months, which caused a great deal of unrest and questions about whether or not that's something that can be done and what happens when that envelope is pushed. Essentially, long story short, CalPERS entered into closed-door negotiations with City of San Bernardino and stressed the importance of honoring those payment obligations, and they have resumed the payments, and those payments are coming with back payment interest paid. So the full debt will be paid, and the issue became then, well, what about the other creditors that San Bernardino owed? If they want to maintain their full CalPERS payments, shouldn't they pay back all the other creditors in full, even though they filed bankruptcy? The answer is a resounding no. So the judges said that, in fact, they're going to dismiss 2 lawsuits from 2 other creditors. So San Bernardino will be making its full monthly payments plus arrears payments. In fact, just last night, the story broke that, in fact, the judge has dismissed the lawsuits from 2 other creditor claimants. So the beat marches on for the city of San Bernardino. Similar story in city of Stockton, which is a little bit closer here in Sacramento. Similar situation where essentially they are going to continue to make their full payments. and other creditors will be impinged by the bankruptcy. So what the term that you'll hear is, well, they're going to continue with their plan of adjustment. A plan of adjustment, when you see that in the media, is referring to what's the payment structure of the other payments that they'll be paying back to their creditors, but those will be reduced from their original payments. But the pension payments will be made in full. The moral of the story being that those remain fully paid going forward. The question will be, down the road, what happens if a city or an agency does not want to keep making those payments, if they determine that they don't want to. So that is something that's being closely monitored by our legal team, closely monitored by everybody involved in the system. But that's the latest and greatest on the city of San Bernardino. Another topic that you may have heard a lot about is the topic of divestment, which you can probably deduce from the word means literally the idea of disinvesting. So CalPERS owns not quite a bit, but has substantial investments in various fossil fuel companies. And there has been some political pressure to divest from those, to say, sell your shares in those various companies for, essentially ethical reasons, or saying that they're contributing to global warming, various climate reasons. And so there's been pressure from various groups to say we need to divest from that. And CalSTRS is also very much in the same boat. Very similar investment patterns there. Again, so divestment being just the opposite of investment, the process of selling an asset and then reinvesting that money elsewhere. For the record, we firmly believe that active and direct engagement with the companies is the preferred method to engage with fossil fuel companies. So at this time, CalPERS will not be divesting from fossil fuel related companies. So don't get me wrong, we do care about climate change. This is a core issue of CalPERS, but we just disagree with the position that, oh, well, the solution is to sell your shares and invest somewhere else. The primary focus of the fund is to continue to pay the pension checks. Okay, that is the number one concern. Everything else is subsidiary to that. In a perfect world, the investments are going to align directly with the political/ethical beliefs of every single member of the system, but when you have opposing views on it, it's going to be hard to please everybody. The one thing that the board and staff agrees on is that the number one thing that has to happen is those pension checks must continue to get paid. Okay, can I get an amen? Okay, that's the key. Okay, so we're going to always have that as our number one goal. Everything kind of leads to that. Having a voice at the table is a term that you may hear when you read the various articles on this. CalPERS does not just invest in companies and basically roll the dice and say, I hope the share price goes up, hope this works. Our policy is to engage with those companies, as active shareholders, because CalPERS, being a mammoth investor, owns large percentages of companies, and therefore that gives us a voice at the table. If we sell all of our shares, we have no voice at the table. We have no ability to control how that company's outcome results, and we are essentially just kind of playing the market. CalPERS does not want to just play the market. We want to be actively involved in positively affecting the outcome to ensure the pension promises that we've made. Okay, so that's divestment. So that's where we are on that particular issue. Related to the idea of controlling the outcome and not just being gamblers with all of our retirement security, is another topic that you may have heard recently. It's called funding level and risk mitigation strategy. This has been a kind of an ongoing topic at some CalPERS board meetings over the last few months. Essentially what we're doing here is we're taking our experts in our financial office, our investment office, and our actuarial office, actuaries being the ones who scientifically look at the longevity, demographics, statistical analysis, and say, okay, if someone lives X number of years, here's how much money we need to have to be able to pay that out. That's about the most elementary definition of actuarial work over here, but it is essentially accurate. So what we're doing is taking a look at all of the many, many, many factors that go into maintaining the fund over the next, not just 10 years, but 20, 30, 50 years. We're trying to look for generations ahead to be able to say, what is it, how much money do we need to produce or take in order to pay out the various pension obligations, health obligations kind of is a different pool, but the same basic idea. The basic financial payments that CalPERS has to make out. So what is that magic mix? The questions that are, or the factors which I mentioned last time are that we have a maturing workforce, meaning the number of people paying into the system is beginning to decline. So the number of actual active members is beginning to decline, while retiree population, people who are drawing the pension checks and are therefore putting nothing in, okay, they've done their service, they did their part of the bargain, that group is growing while the amount of people putting money in is shrinking. Very similar to the Social Security dilemma, where there's more people who are taking than are putting in, and that is just growing. And so that's the primary consideration. So what are we doing about that? Well, essentially, the board is discussing various options. What can we do to reduce risk in the system so that we can sleep soundly at night knowing that in 10 years and in 50 years and in 100 years, there'll still be pension checks? So one of the concepts that the board's considering is to gradually reduce investment risk by decreasing the discount rate gradually over time in step with asset allocation. So this is a term, Danny actually mentioned it. Or actually, I believe it was Kristen who mentioned it. So the discount rate is generally the same as the expected rate of return on investments. Okay, it's kind of like a guiding number to say, if we are making X number or X percentage of increase every year, then we'll be able to calculate our budget forecasting. Okay, so another concept that we're looking at is a way to reduce that discount rate only in years of strong investment returns. So last year, when we made 18.4%, over the discount rate of 7.5%, that was a huge year. It's like, okay, now that we had this banner year, can we maybe do some adjustments to the system to benefit from that? The problem is that you can never forecast that. You can never say, oh, well, it was 18.4% last year. I just assume it'll be that again next year, so let's go ahead and budget off of that. It just doesn't work. We could also combine the two concepts so that the discount rate would gradually decrease in most years, but decrease more quickly following a great investment return. And then the fourth option, so there's really four that they're really discussing, it's an option for our employers. Okay, so the employers would have the ability to say, we want a more risky asset allocation risk, or a more kind of conservative one. I know that we're all in the pension system, but if you ever had a 401k or you have a 457, you know that you can decide, okay, I want to be more risky here. More risk, more return. I want the aggressive stocks. I want more of a technology-based portfolio. Whatever it is, I'm ready to roll the dice here. Often because maybe you're younger and over time you'll want that. As people progress in their careers, if you've only got 10 years left till retirement, you don't want to get too risky in general. So basically this would be giving employers the opportunity to decide, hey, we at our district, hopefully we're expecting some good returns and we want to have our asset allocation be a little bit more risky. As you can imagine, this raises a lot of administrative questions. Okay, so if we have over 3,000 individual employers and districts in the system, if we have 3,000 different recipes for investment, that's going to be an enormous administrative cost. I mean, it kind of boggles the mind there. So that's something to consider there. Lots of difficult decisions. All of this is being publicly vetted and discussed. That's the nice thing here, is that this is not happening in some closed door room where people are, crunching the numbers and you have no idea, and you just kind of got to hope it goes well. This is all public. This is your money. The board meets with experts and staff to discuss this in public. The first such what we call public workshop was in February, and then there is another one this upcoming Wednesday. This will be webcast. If you're in the Sacramento area, you're welcome to come. Wednesday morning from 11 to 1. It's public, right at CalPERS. Come and hear, the mysteries of the financial universe be discussed, because this is our literal financial future here. So My hope is that you believe that the system and the fund is in good hands here, because it is definitely not just on autopilot. It is constantly being reviewed. The formulas that go into it are constantly being analyzed at all levels to ensure that we're able to make our pension promises now and in the future. Lastly, some questions about a big issue going on right now is retiree health care. So I know not all districts utilize CalPERS for health care, but in the general sense of understanding how or what's the current questions confronting CalPERS on this issue, I wanted to give you an update. As you know, healthcare costs continue to just skyrocket. Okay, in California, in Arkansas, for active members, for retirees, it doesn't matter. It's just the trend is consistently upward, upward, upward in terms of cost. And CalPERS is the second largest purchaser of healthcare benefits in America, okay, after only the federal government. So we're a major player in this. We're a player in terms of the number of people that we are distributing healthcare to, but also a heavyweight in the conversation with the Medicare, or with the healthcare world in terms of setting costs, and that discussion about what can we do as a society to limit these costs. So we're involved in that. So let me tell you about some of the three specific issues that we're dealing with right now. And then I'll be happy to take any questions, because I know I'm kind of monologuing here. First off, we're looking at a new option for retiree healthcare specifically, okay, specifically in the Medicare area. So someone has retired, they worked for a CalPERS agency, and now they have crossed that 65 barrier. We're putting forward a proposal actually this next week to say, okay, what if we had just one single carrier for our non-Kaiser HMO Medicare folks? So that might sound like a lot of gobbledygook if you're not into that age range, or you're not your district, or you don't deal with health benefits. But essentially, we're looking to consolidate down, saying, okay, instead of Medicare folks being able to choose from Blue Shield, Anthem, a bunch of other places, what if we went out to that universe and said, we're going to choose one of you guys. Who's going to give us the best deal? Who's going to give us the best price? Make your offer, okay? And right now, the best offer that has come forward is from a group called United Healthcare, okay? So they have put together a huge proposal, very feature and benefit rich, costs unknown at this point. It's still part of rate negotiations, but I have to assume that it is the most attractive deal that was offered, and that's going before the Pension and Health Benefits Committee this Tuesday. So if you're interested in seeing the details of that, the proposal itself was actually just put on to the public CalPERS website this morning. All the details is there, except for the cost, again, because that's part of rate negotiations, which is ongoing, but you can see the breadth and scope of the deal. So CalPERS is really working hard to lower, basically to contain costs while having that high quality of care. That's the balance. Cost containment versus quality of care. Okay, so that's one effort we're doing there. Second big initiative going on right now at CalPERS is a discussion about something called broad and narrow networks. Okay, so essentially a broad network refers to a vast array of doctors and specialists in an area, and narrow network would be fewer of them. Think of this in terms of like cable TV channels. You might have the full package with 1,000 channels, but you only watch 30 of them repeatedly. Well, with broad and narrow, it's more like you have the 1,000 channels are broad, and you would pay a little bit less to have narrow, but it's not 1,000, it's like 800. So still a ton. But a little bit narrower, but much more cost effective. So that's one thing that we're exploring right now. It's still in the research stage, but it has been discussed, and the board has asked for a recommendation, so that'll be coming soon. And then lastly, the issue that's being discussed, not really at the CalPERS level, but really more at the legislature level, is the idea of high deductible plans. Wherein the person would pay less in monthly premiums, but if they do need to use services, then the deductible is higher, much like with car insurance. You have a low monthly premium, but then if you get in a wreck, you would have $1,000 deductible instead of $500. So there's pros and cons to that, obviously. And this is proven to be, a charged issue. Different sides believe very strongly in the two different sides. CalPERS has no position on this. We don't have that plan in place right now. We're just kind of waiting to see what kind of guidance comes from the legislature, from the governor's office on that. But that's kind of, we're well aware of the discussions, and that's a lot of the questions we get. What's CalPERS say about high deductible plans? Our stance is, you tell us, state of California, but currently that is not in play. Okay. All right, lastly, last update is on the cost of living adjustments, which is paid out to pensioners. So it could be as much as every year, but in this case, it was after 2 years. The cost of living adjustment just kicked in, so folks received a 2% increase, okay, to deal with inflation, and so that just kicked into place. We also have something called the triple PA, which is the purchasing power protection one. This was much less common than the COLA, and this really only applies to folks who have been receiving pension checks for a long time, an average of like 30 years. So I mean, they're going to be pretty elderly at this point, and it's kind of like a secondary cost of living protection. Just understanding that the buying power of a dollar between now and 1980 is vastly different, and it provides a little bit of boost and purchasing power protection there. It's not earth-shattering, but it's certainly a good faith effort to, let these folks not dip down into, true poverty. So that's really a good thing in our case. Okay, so I'll get off my high horse here. As you can tell, there's a lot of stuff going on. This is really fascinating work. CalPERS is what I really like about CalPERS is that it is a major player in all of these industries. It's a major player in investments. It's a major player in the pension world. It's a major player in the health world. And so we're doing all that work for you folks. So if you have any questions at this time, I'd be happy to take them, or we can talk about any of these issues at the break. Yes. One moment, please, for the mic.
The plan, the option you were talking about, the United Healthcare for Medicare people.
Yes.
Is that going to be offered to even the member retirees whose employer is not offering health benefits?
No,
that will never be the case.
It would not. No, it's going to be It's going to be if you're part of the CalPERS retiree plan in some sense. Yeah.
And my second question is, when you were talking about the discount rate, the way I understood it's like a rate of return on your money. So when you say the discount rate might go lower, but inflation goes up or cost of living, so how do they balance then?
Well, I mean, the two aren't really linked, in my opinion. And I don't want to get too far out of my purview.
I just thought if PERS is expecting low rate of return by lowering the discount rate, but at the same time, the cost of living goes up. Maybe I'm just thinking too much.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
I don't even understand all this.
The discount rate, essentially that expected rate of return, in order to hit a 7.5% return rate, we have to that means that we're having some level of risk and aggression in our investments. Lowering that simply means that we're taking out some risk from the game. So things, perhaps if we had invested in some, stocks, which are traditionally a little bit more volatile, maybe now we're investing in treasury bills for a percentage, which are, as long as the United States of America is not conquered, T-bills will pay. Okay, so that's all that's saying, is that we would be reallocating some risk a little bit there, with the ultimate goal there would be no impact on the payout to you as when you retire. There would be no difference between what these investment changes are making today versus your pension check dollar amount. No correlation whatsoever. It's more like internally, what can we do to make sure that our investments are paying as much of every dollar paid to you as possible versus taxpayer dollars or employer contributions.
Good enough for me.
Great.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, let's go ahead and move briskly along then. Let's get into some of the rubber meets the road material. So I'd like to invite Michael Hayden up. Michael is from our Customer Service and Outreach Division, and he's going to share some information about our health benefits for you.
Good morning, school employers. All right. My name is Michael Hadeen. I am a CalPERS employer educator, and I work in the employer education unit within the Customer Service and Outreach Division. So here we go. Thank you. All right. So according to your agenda, I'll be talking about the health benefits guide. And before I start talking about that, by show of hands, who has health benefits with CalPERS? So there's a few out there, good. And so for those folks that raise their hand, how would you like to learn a new strategy to answer your own questions about health benefits? I'm sure there's plenty of you out there. So basically, this presentation is just going to teach you a new strategy for getting some of your health benefits questions answered, in lieu of calling the contact center. So before we had this new electronic online health benefits guide, we had a hard copy. And it wasn't as easy as just going to our website and downloading it, so to say. So you actually had to contact CalPERS either by phone or by email and request that hard copy document get sent out to you. And so what's the problem with hard copy documents? When CalPERS needs to make an update, if a regulation changes or if there's a law change, you might be holding on to old information with that hard copy document. So to correct that, CalPERS has been working hard to create this online document to answer some of those health benefits questions. So the purpose of my short presentation here today is to just advertise and promote this new helpful health benefits guide that's going to be on our CalPERS website. So some of the information you're going to be able to get off this health benefits guide are information such as enrollment or eligibility information. You can look at health plans. There's going to be billing instructions, information about Medicare, and more importantly, there's all the different forms that we would need, maybe the HBD-12 or if you have a parent-child relationship, you need a certain form for that. So anyways, all those forms are going to be located in that guide as well. So I'd like to point out that this guide is exclusively online, so if you went to our calpers.ca.gov website, you'd be able to locate that form. So why are we even talking about all of this, this health benefits guide? Why is this even so important? Well, when your school district came into contract with CalPERS for health benefits, basically your board had to sign a resolution that said we're going to agree to all the PEMPCA rules and regulations, right? So I'm sure you weren't the one that signed that document, but you're still going to have to follow those same rules and regulations. So PEMPCA basically PEMPCA's legislation does three things. It allows CalPERS to offer health benefits to eligible employers. PEMPCA mandates requirements for employers, and it establishes criteria for employees and annuitants. So basically, PEMPCA lays down the law for what we're supposed to be staying in compliance with, for health benefits, right? So, but how are you supposed to know all this information? There's so much information out there. How are you supposed to know where to find it or how to be in compliance, so to say? Well, that's why we've created this health benefits guide to basically help you stay in compliance with all that health benefits legislation. So my idea was I could pull up the health benefits guide and show you how to get in there. So remember, this isn't anything unlike the retirement public agency and schools reference guide. If you have a retirement question, one of the first resources you have is that public agency and schools reference guide, right? So we have that online, and hopefully you're using that. So now we also have this public agency and schools health benefits guide. So I'm going to show you how to get in there, and basically you're going to go to our CalPERS website, and on the left-hand side you'll have that, or on the right-hand side you have that forms and publications link. So you're going to select that. Now you're going to find where it says View Employer Publications. So find that. And now you're going to need to scroll down to where it says Manuals. You see why I got to show you this, right? There's a lot of links here. All right, so you're going to find Manuals, and then after that, it's the last link on that page, and it says Public Agency and Schools Health Benefits Guide. So after you select that link, it's going to take you to another page where you're going to select another link. But basically, after you select that, boom, you're in the Health Benefits Program Guide. And so Andrea's going to blow it up here, but basically on one of the first pages, you have a table of contents. And so if she's scrolling down, you can see that there's different links, and those links go to a certain area in that reference guide. So basically, I just wanted to point out that there's a link right up there. I'm sure you can't read it right now, but there's a link in there that just says enrollment. So if you were to select the enrollment link, it brings you to a page that is talking about enrollment. And one of the new things that they've done with this guide is that they've included all the forms that you would need as a blue link right there, as you can see. So right off the bat, you got that health benefits, or the HBD 12, which is the standard health benefits enrollment form. If you keep scrolling through that, it'll have all the different other forms, you know, parent-child relationships, certifying disabled dependents, all that good stuff. So the idea here is that we're just trying to let you know that this exists, and it's a really helpful tool. One of the first jobs I had at CalPERS was in the employer contact center, and so I spent my day, you know, answering phones from employers, and no matter what question it was, you know, I would, you know, get your question, then I'd say, okay, can I put you on hold? And I put you on hold, and I would go look for the information, and then as soon as I come back to you and give you the answer, one of the first things you would say probably is, you know, where is that in writing, right? So that's what this is meant to be, you know, where it's at in writing, and you can actually see it and hopefully utilize this and help answer some of those questions you have about health benefits. So that was my short presentation. I hope you use that new guide, because we had a lot of staff members put a lot of hard work into building that. So thank you.
Any questions for Michael before we let him get away? Nice try, Michael.
I was trying to get out of here. All right. Well, thank you again.
Thank you. Okay, why don't we go ahead and take a short break? So let's take a 10-minute break, and let's resume, well, let's say 12 minutes. So please come back at 10:50. Get some refreshments. Walk around the beautiful grounds. The river is out here to the left.